Welcome back to the Becoming Her podcast. We are going to be chatting all things progressive overload today. And I'm pretty excited because I love talking about lifting heavy shit. I know that this is something that has made a dramatic difference for Dr. Ann Bouquet as well. And we're going to really dive into the who, what, when, where, why, and how when it comes to progressive overload, because what I see happen so very often is that women come to me and they're like, but Nicole, I'm strength training, I'm lifting weights, and I'm still not seeing the results that I want to see. And I'm going to go off the assumption that your nutrition's in check, right? Because your nutrition is always going to drive the show. But if your nutrition's in check and you're not seeing the results from strength training that you're looking to see, there's a few reasons as to why that's typically the case. And that's what I want to dive into. Of course, we'll ping back and forth with Bouquet and Anne, because I know Bouquet herself has a pretty powerful story, I guess, because we've been working together for a while, and she's really just started to ramp up her strength training. I know training with her husband has helped you there, and seen dramatic changes. And Dr. Ann as well, going from mainly cardio to switching over to a strength training based routine. So what I see happen, I guess first let's back up. Let's talk about strength training. And we're talking you guys hear me talk strength training, I usually say a properly built strength training program focused on progressive overload. And I want to dive into what progressive overload is, because I think that there's a lot of confusion, and people ask me often, like, what does that exactly mean? And progressive overload is just a really fancy way of saying that 1% better mentality, right? So it's a way of saying, the way that I define it is every single time that you walk into the gym to train, you are training with intent, and is a 1% better mentality. And progressive overload can come in a lot of different forms. I think people confuse it, thinking like the only way to apply progressive overload is if I'm lifting heavier weight. And that is the goal. Of course, the goal is to be able to lift heavier weight, but progressive overload can come in sets, reps, tempo, rest periods, right? There's a lot of different ways to apply this. And really, truly, your goal every single time that you walk into the gym, like I said, is 1% better. And I know 1% doesn't feel like a lot, but if you stack it and you're training 5 days a week, that's 5% a week, which is 20% a month, which is a pretty substantial difference. And before we dive into progressive overload as well and the nuances of that, I want to define the definition between training and working out, because this is something that I feel like a lot of people struggle with. And when we talk working out, usually what I see when people are like, Nicole, but I'm working out, I'm eating healthy, I'm not seeing results. Working out for a lot of people is, I go to the gym, I kind of check off this box because that's what I think I need to do to lose weight, right? And I walk in and I might hit a class, I might do a couple machines and I get really overwhelmed. And then I typically end up upstairs on the elliptical or, the treadmill, because I just don't really have a strategy. That's working out. Training is the exact opposite of that. Training requires strategy, right? Training is, and I usually say in alignment with your goals, is something that is very strategic. You have a plan, you are tracking it. And that's the difference. And we need to make sure when we have very specific goals, and if your goals are toned, right? Like your goals are to change the way that your body looks, you do need to make sure that your training is in alignment with that. And it is okay, you guys. I want to also say that it is okay to have goals that have nothing to do with body composition as well, right? And so when I say making sure, because people ask me often, they're like, how often should I be doing this? Should it be weights before cardio or cardio before weights? And my first question is always, well, what are your goals? Because different goals require a different strategy, and it is okay to have goals that have nothing to do with your body composition. And if you have performance-based goals, maybe you want to run a Spartan or a Tough Mudder or a marathon. That's going to be a completely different training than if your goals are body composition. I see Dr. Ann shaking her head. So do you have something to add to that, Ann?
Yeah, just as you were talking, because I've run Tough Mudders and done half marathons. I hated running the whole time, but I love the obstacle courses. And what's interesting about that is that is spot on, because I think initially early on when I was even training for those, I kind of thought, well, I'm just going to run as many miles as I can, and you realize real fast that not only gets really old, but it's overly taxing and exhausting. There's not a strategy to it, and I'd say that in getting a coach in on your team and having someone else even provide me the structure of what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was using apps. I thought I was doing a great job, right? I was working out on a consistent basis, and the second someone just pushed me, who just knew more than I did. I'd say I'm not even going to say slightly more because I knew a lot more than I did about what I needed to do with my body. Suddenly, I went from working out relatively consistency, being in the same body that I've always been in, not being super happy with it, happy with the exercise that I was doing, but wasn't happy with what was happening just to my body post menopause, to suddenly feeling in control and feeling much more confident and strong.
Yeah.
I was so impressed. I
Yep.
mean,
It's a game changer.
leg lifts for the same year doing the same weight, and suddenly it's 100 pounds more.
Damn,
Um,
girl.
and I was like, oh, I didn't even think I could lift that. That's it. And I'm a grandma. That is wonderful.
That's something I really want to dive into too. And I feel like we're kind of, I'm getting squirrel kind of moments here because there's so much that I want to dive into. And you just really like opened up a whole can of worms of all of the ways that we can take this and in a really great way, because this is something that a lot of women struggle with, right? And so that's why I wanted to cover the basis of what is progressive overload so you can understand the mentality around it and the difference between working out and training, because they are two very different things. And I'd be willing to bet before joining our team, Dr. Ann, that you probably were in a space of working out, right? There really wasn't, I know you said you're using apps, but there probably wasn't necessarily a strategy that was in alignment with your goals and kind of like what you thought, air quotations, that you needed to do to lose weight possibly, and, you know, keep up with health and fitness. I know you had other goals outside of just weight loss, fat loss, but would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, and I would say that I really just wanted to feel stronger and more confident in the body that I was in. It again, it's not like I've done a lot of work around this my whole life, and I
Mhm.
got to a place where I was kind of settled in my body, but I saw my body shifting, and again, that's going to happen, right? But I wanted some control back, and I wasn't willing to accept, right? So it felt like I was a hamster on a hamster wheel. It was insane. And
Yeah.
that the harder I worked, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to try this or I'll do that. And the harder I worked, it didn't actually net anything except just more time.
Yep, more time and then more frustration because the harder you work and you're expecting results in return, yet you're not seeing those results. And then that just leaves you frustrated AF. You're like, why am I putting all of this energy into this if I'm not getting the ROI necessarily in return? And of course, there's the health benefits of moving our body. I'm not discounting those, but I mean, I would be lying. We'd all be lying if we don't say that there's an area of this that we do to, you know, enhance our like to feel comfortable in our clothes and enhance our physique and love what we see in the mirror. And so when you're not seeing those results for all of that energy and effort that you're putting into it, that can be frustrating AF. And so when we talk progressive overload, you guys, and we talk training with intent, this first and foremost, like I said, is making sure that your training's in alignment with what your actual goals are. And if your goals are body recomp, and that's like 95% of women that come to us for help, they're looking to lose some body fat. They want to add some muscle to their frame. They want to feel a bit like more confident in their skin, right? And so strength training is going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. It's going to give us the biggest ROI, the biggest return on our investment. And what I mean by strategy, though, is that what I see often is that women come to me and they're kind of just they're throwing stuff at a wall and they're praying that it sticks. Well, this influencer does this, and so I do this, and then I get bored of this, and then I move to this because this looks really cool, and then I get bored of that, and I switch over to this because I'm not seeing those results. And training with intent and training with strategy means that there's going to be a lot of repetition, and there's going to be a lot of like one of my favorite things is when my girls come to me and they're like, "But Nicole, I'm bored," and I'm like, "Fire! Are we looking to be entertained? Or are we looking for results?" Right? And there's going to, and Dr. Anna and I actually talked about this in a previous podcast, a few podcasts back. If you haven't checked that out about burnout and boredom. But there is a space of boredom that comes with, I shouldn't say boredom, but a space of repetition that can feel boring at times when you are training for a very specific goal. And especially if that goal is body recomposition, because that is going to come down to us taking muscle to failure. And for us to be able to do that and for muscle to grow, you have to continue to improve upon those lifts, right? And that's going to be your compound lifts. And so there's going to be a lot of repetition in that. And this is something that a lot of people kind of get lost in because they think that they need to confuse their muscles and they don't necessarily have a strategy behind that. And I really want to dive into Paquette's story because we've worked together for a long time. I mean, what has it been now? 4 years now, Paquette? 3, 4
Yeah.
years?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
been, about
It's
that long.
it's been a while. And when we first started strength training, you know, and it's really hard because when you start, there's a difference between the weights are challenging. This is really hard versus true failure. And it takes a while to really understand what true failure is when you start strength training. That's something that doesn't necessarily come naturally. You really have to like tap in and find that. And so when you're training, and I'm like, okay, the intensity that we bring to our training really matters. And I feel like particularly as females, we truly underestimate just how strong we really are. And we're not, just like Anne said, right? Like I had 100 more pounds on that leg press and I had no freaking clue, like no clue. And so it's one of those things that, yeah, when we start training, it feels hard, but hard and true failure are two very different concepts. And so we underestimate that, and we're not training at the intensity that's required to see the results that we want to see. And I love the connection that Bouquet made, because she's like, Nicole, I've started training with my husband. And she's like, I get it now. I get what you've been saying all of these years, right? Like all the things that you've been saying have finally clicked, because she's like, holy crap, he pushes me in a way that I never thought possible. And so she's, what do you say? I mean, doubling some of your lifts.
Yeah, I'm deadlifting 150 pounds now.
That's amazing. That's
I was
amazing.
not, I was not doing that. I mean, before, like it took a while to get there. But he helps me, like, even if it's just 2 or 3 reps, like, but I can get it in. And, I think with you, like I was that person that had an app before, and I would go on YouTube and look at like the coolest, newest fitness influencer with like 1 million followers. And, they would do their little routine, and I would literally screenshot their like routines and pause. And I would go to the gym and look at the gym and kind of say, okay, I'm just going to copy what she did there. And, but I didn't really see any changes. And then when I started working with you, it was very boring in a good way. This is what you're going to do, and I want you to push yourself. But, and I did a lot, and my body changed. Like I grew my booty, and it's still growing. And like my legs are firmer and my arms are firm. But I started lifting with my husband like 3 months ago, and literally just 2 days a week with him, and then 1 or 2 days on my own. But those 2 days, Saturday and Sundays, he really pushed me. Like he really, really pushed me. And my body's like changing a lot. Like I just see, today I was at the gym and I was working out, and I could just see like muscles kind of popping out where I didn't notice them before. And I'm like, wow.
That's like the best feeling ever.
Yes, but I think it just like, I think I messaged you that day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really get it now. Train to failure like really makes sense. Like you really should be tired as crap, can't do another one. And then, okay, and now I'm just like picking up the plates, like the 35, 45. I'm just like easy. Like it's like easy. I'm like, whoa, like I'm strong, but it feels good. I do believe that it takes time. I think that like working with you, it's taken me years. And the beauty of that is you're not just lifting weights for 6 months for a competition and you're done. It's for life. So I think everybody, probably even you, being that you've been training for so long, you probably still have moments of, oh, this is different or this is new, because you never stop learning. But yeah, I'm very happy with pushing myself to failure. And now when my husband's not there, I do that. Like I try to act like he's there, and I'm like, okay, he would say, do another one.
No, that's a really great point. And so I want to give our listeners some cues to really work off of. And then I want to dive in with Dr. Ann on the mental side of this, because I know there can be a lot of roadblocks overcoming some of these things. I'd be curious how you work through some of these things with your clients, Ann. But some really solid rules of thumb that I give. And if you guys are still confused about the progressive overload concept, shoot me a message over on one of my social media profiles, my Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever like suits your fancy. But I did a whole training in and around progressive overload, all the terms that we use for it and the lingo and whatnot that really dive deep into those individual nuances. Here, I really want to talk about the powerful space of like how we implement it. So if you want a copy of that and more of the lingo, and like I said, just the nuances behind that, shoot me a message and I'll send you a copy of that for completely free. But when some like good rule of thumbs that you can use when you're training is how I explain it to my clients is the last 2 reps of whatever it is that you're training, squats, presses, whatever movement is, needs to be a struggle. It needs to be a challenge. And usually what I say is curse my name underneath your breath, whatever you need to do, those last 2 reps need to they hurt in a good way, right? Like, holy crap, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this up kind of concept with proper form. And form's one of those things that we master over time. That's going to take some putting some reps into it, you guys, but they need to be a challenge. And it's one of those things, if you are just throwing the weight around and you're like, okay, what's the big deal? It's not heavy enough. And the amount of women are like, but Nicole, and like, I get a lot of resistance sometimes of swapping out more strength training than cardio. And pushback that I get often is like, I'm just not burning enough calories. I'm not out of breath. I don't feel like I'm getting a good workout. I'm like, you come train legs with me. I'll flip that mindset for you really quickly, really, really quickly. But it's one of those things that you're only going to get out of it what you put into it, right? And so if it's one of those things, it's very rarely a programming thing. I guess it could be if you're trying to do excessive, crazy amounts of like volume and sets, and you really don't need that. You don't need all the junk volume as much as it is an intensity thing of what you're bringing to your training. And so I get asked often, well, how many days a week should I be working out and for how long? And again, it's like the amount of days and how long that you're training really doesn't matter as much as the intensity that you're bringing to that training session, because you could be in the gym 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. But if you're picking up pink, shiny dumbbells every single time you walk into the gym and you're jaw jacking more than you're training, you're going to see zero results. But you could give me 3 to 4 days of intentional effort in the gym, 40 to 45 minutes, and see insane results if you're strategic with your training. And so that's something that is, I think, a mental hurdle for a lot of people, because I feel like for a lot of people, it's okay, I need to be in the gym 5 days a week, an hour and a half a day. And if I do that, if I commit to that and I check off that box, then I'll see the results. And so that's really what I want to dive into with Dr. Ann, because this is something that it takes its intensity over obviously volume, but it's a completely different headspace of which we're operating from, because now it becomes more intentional and it's not just what we're doing to chase a result. And so dive in, Ann, because I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, and what's the word that I was thinking of as you were talking is the space of where I think a lot of us unfortunately find ourselves, which is more compulsive types of exercise. So that's that experience where like I'm literally dreading this. There's nothing I get out of it, that I don't enjoy this anymore. And also it doesn't seem to be doing anything for me. But again, I feel like a hamster on a wheel. If I stop doing this, I'm going to gain weight because I'm not burning the same number of calories. And this is the only thing that I know to do. So I'm going to just keep doing it. Now, I also want to comment that there are those of us, and I was in this category of, I was doing lots of cardio because I love cardio, thought it was like really my jam. I grew up as a swimmer. And so for me, it was about getting out and getting in the country. But then I also noticed my body shifting and it didn't make any sense. So I'm like, why am I gaining weight when I'm riding 100 miles a week and loving life and doing everything? Like I'm not overeating and not like, and it just didn't make any sense for me. And so we've got to get out of the space of that compulsive. I think it's our diet. Like it's just the diet industry and all it sold us on, right? But we've got to get out of the space of just simply, I almost hate hearing myself say this out loud, because I can hear my friends who are dietitians like gasp in the background. Calories in versus calories out. Yes, the calories matter. Okay, I said it. The calories do matter. Yes, please don't go and eat 5,000 calories and go strength train and say, Nicole, it's not working. The idea behind what it is that we're actually trying to accomplish: look better, feel more confident, feel stronger. We're chasing some magical numbers out there that are honestly, quite frankly, unicorns. Yeah, your MyFitnessPal or your what is it, the MAPS ride, that kind of stuff.
My rum or whatever.
Yeah. You burned 10,000 calories today because you did this, really intense. That's highly inaccurate. Even your watch is going to be inaccurate. And so the calories may or may not be that accurate. They may not be that real. And so a lot of what we're actually doing when we're learning how to do something new, especially going slower, like that to me, when my coach, when I was talking with her about this, I was like, why do I need a minute and a half rest between these stupid reps? And, and I was one of the, and I thought I was doing good weights, right? Poor form, good weight. And so I was, like jacking them out as fast as I could, getting done in 20 minutes, thinking that was the goal. And all right, I felt kind of winded. That almost felt like one of my rides. And it was a completely backwards process, because it's really more quality over fast, over speed. And had you said that to me a decade ago, I would have fought you on it because I was all about the cardio and I love the cardio and that is my jam. And by the way, I do still ride. I still love cardio. But what was magical about it that absolutely does not make logical sense until you think about what we're doing in terms of growing muscles is that honestly, me spending, this is what I found out, 30 minutes in the gym, 40 minutes in the gym, 4 times a week, did more for me than riding 100 miles.
Yep.
And it was less time.
Yep. And let's talk about why Dr. Ann's coach was, having her, a minute, because I get asked that question often. That's actually a really great point. It's like, why do I need to take this rest in between sets? And you have to think about it again, you guys, it's the intensity, right? And so this is where people who do a lot of like F45 and Fit Body Boot Camp and these HIIT session style training sessions, but Nicole, I'm lifting weights. Yeah, you're lifting weights and I love that you're doing something and it's inherently better than doing absolutely nothing. And I love that these classes put weights in a lot of females' hands that probably wouldn't have found weights outside of these classes. So I'm not bashing on these classes. They serve a purpose. But when you are your focus is mainly more on cardio than it is on the strength training piece of it. You don't truly have the energy in you to take muscle to failure, right? Because you're too winded from the cardio sessions and from the box jumps and the sprints and the burpees or insert whatever it is in between these, strength training pieces that you're doing with these different classes. And so when you're just rushing through your sessions and you're not taking adequate rest period, your body you're not well rested enough to give 100% to that next set, right? And that's what we're looking to do. So I always say whatever the limiting factor is, and I'm going to explain this a little bit more, needs to be fully recovered before you start your next steps. And what I mean by that, so let's take something like Bulgarian split squats. If you know, nobody loves them. Like they are the worst, right? Like they just one of those things I don't care how long you've been training, they just never get easier. They don't. But for me, the limiting factor for me isn't necessarily my quads or my hamstrings or my glutes. It's my cardio. They kill me. I feel like I should be holding a Twinkie in one hand and a smoke in the other because every single time I'm just so winded. And so I always have to I usually give myself 2 minutes but if my cardio and my heart's still going at that 2 minutes, then I'm giving myself 3 minutes. So whatever that limiting factor that is going to inhibit you from giving 100% to that next set needs to be fully recovered before you go in for the next one, right? Because again, every single set that you do, you want to train with intent. And this is how we can get away with a lot less volume and a lot more just intentional training, right? Is because you can do less work and get bigger bang for your buck if the training that you are doing is with intent. And so if you're just rushing through those sets and you're like, but I'm just going to, rep them out as quickly as I possibly can, you're definitely not bringing the intensity to every single set. And that's truly what you need to be focused on is that intensity. And that takes it from, because I love when girls look at programming that I send them and they're like, Nicole, there's only 5 exercises here. I'm like, and they're like, but where's, and I'm like, no, just 5. And they're like, but, and they can't grasp it. And I'm like, I want you to give me 100% to every single rep that you push within these 5 exercises. You get done and tell me that it's still not enough. And then we can talk. Right. But it is a completely different mentality than, oh, I'm used to doing 7, 8, 9, 10 different exercises that have 10, 15 reps per exercise kind of thing. And that's what, the definition of quote unquote junk volume. And so it's not how often or how long you're in the gym. It's not, you know what I mean? How many sets and how many reps, it's the intensity of which that you bring to your training. And there's just so much power to that. When that clicks, that's the game changer. I see Baquette shaking your head. Do you have anything to say there?
100%. Nope. Nothing to add. I mean, that's just what it is. You don't need to have crazy workouts or crazy movements. It's 5 or 6 movements for whatever, day that is, upper or lower, and you're good to go as long as you're giving it, like you said, 100%. I think that's the difference. And then being patient with yourself and giving it time, because it does take time to build muscle. But what Anne was talking about when she said she hit menopause, cardio wasn't doing it anymore. It's because we do naturally become more insulin resistant. And if we add muscle to our frame, then that helps reverse some of that naturally. So it speeds up your metabolism. You utilize carbohydrates much easier, goes into the muscle where it belongs. So that's probably why things changed for you. And as you probably started changing your body composition because you added muscle and the muscle did things to your metabolism.
Well, and naturally too, as we age, we start to lose muscle mass, right? Like that's just something that starts to happen naturally. And this isn't I'm talking pretty rapidly, you guys, as we hit menopause. It's like 1 to 3% a year, which over the course of a decade can, anywhere from 10 to 30% of muscle mass that we're losing naturally if we're not doing the things on our end through our lifestyle to sustain and maintain that. And so if you take, if you are in menopause, postmenopause, and this is where Anne's seen such a dramatic shift is, and then she was doing, again, cardio is not bad. I'm not bashing on cardio. There's a time and a place, and fitting that into your routine. And if it's something that makes your heart happy and it fills your soul, absolutely. You don't have to cut it out. But that was her main focus. And so that's where she was struggling, is naturally you start to lose. And then she's doing activity that leads to, because cardio it's catabolic. It's just what it is, especially if you're not eating enough food and you're not getting in enough protein. And this is where the weight gain starts to happen rapidly. This is where the belly appears almost what feels like overnight, because what is less muscle mass? That is a lower BMR. And your BMR is your direct result of your metabolism. And what's your metabolism? Your metabolism is the amount of calories that you're burning every single day. And so you want a metabolism that's on freaking fire. And the way for you to create a metabolism that's on fire is by adding more muscle. Like that, muscle is one of the biggest driving factors of a metabolism that is revving, like one that is like working for you. And, there's so many added benefits to muscle outside of just, a banging body that you feel dang good and naked. And it's the metabolic capacity. It's the hormones. I mean, you can speak to the side of adding muscle to your frame and what does that do for your hormones? Speak to that a little bit.
No, yeah, like with insulin resistance, it helps reverse that. Muscle, if you don't replace your testosterone, which I do recommend women replace it even in their 30s because it goes down, but even if you didn't replace it, just with this lifestyle change of lifting weights, you will boost, testosterone naturally for a short period of time. So yeah, the better in shape you are, as far as the more muscle mass you have on your body, the better your thyroid function, the better your metabolism functions, blood glucose functions, your brain. I mean, even depression, and you probably know, like it's a temporary effect, but after you work out for about 15 hours post workout, you kind of have those endorphins running still, like you feel good.
Yep.
I know I do. Like if I go work out, right after I work out, I feel great for like a good 10, 12 hours. And then, I got to work out again. but it's a natural antidepressant. It's a natural mood stabilizer. And it's free. I mean, it's a membership maybe to the gym unless you have it at home, but it's essentially free. I think it's more so just mindset and reminding yourself that it's a priority and making sure you do it at least 3 to 4 times a week.
Yep. Do it 3 to 4 times a week. And then I love that we're chatting about this. Do it and not just check off a box, but with intent behind it. And when you said that, I really want to dive into, you said 3 to 4 days a week, how powerful. And I'm going to chat with you about this, Anne. I want to hear your thoughts, but rest days and incorporating them, right? Because I know I love those that are watching us. Like if you're not watching us, I just see the little facial expressions if you're not catching this on the actual like video replay, but rest days are one of those things that are so underrated. And because it's this concept that more is better, right? And more is not better, better is better. But why are rest days so powerful, especially because I'd say the majority of our audience is menopause. I find for my babes in menopause, 3 to 4 days a week of training is more than enough. And at that point, we can capitalize on rest and recovery just as much as we do training. And again, it's the training sessions that we give 100% to that are the training sessions that move our needle forward. And if you're working out 6, 7 days a week because you're in your head and you're in your own ego and you think that, again, more is better, I guarantee you're giving me 60, 70%. I need 100% to move our needle forward, right? Your body's just not recovered enough to be able to give 100%. And that's where I feel like people, again, are going to go in the backwards direction, is because, again, they're wrapped up in the mentality of what toxic diet culture breeds. And a lot of that is, grind it out kind of like culture and drive your body into the ground. So yeah, definitely dive into that for us, Anne.
Oh, well, so, it's so funny that you brought me into that specific discussion on that. Because again, I worked out. I feel like need to explain this. You know, as a competitive swimmer, we swam 5 days a week, and then we had meets on the weekend, and then, you know, our only rest day was like Sunday if we were lucky. So you know, so I've lived my entire life thinking the only place to be was on. And one of the very first things that my coach said is, you're gonna have to have more than one rest day. And I was like, why? I love this.
What are you talking about?
And you know, what's interesting about it, this goes to, and I know we're talking about working harder, but it's really working smarter.
It's working smarter. That's what progressive overload, that absolutely.
And in order, and it's like that, you know, that what is that, the, you know, the 60 to 90 minutes to 2 minutes between reps. Those rests are actually us recharging and our muscles rebuilding, and not the small ones, but the, you know, the rest days. We've got to have that. And I think what happens for a lot of us, because we have been inundated in this diet culture and this, you know, calories in, calories out, you got to keep moving, is we feel, and I have absolutely been in that place, a lot of anxiety when we're not doing what we think we have to do to maintain our current status quo. So and I hear this all the time when I'm working with people on calories and compulsive exercise, and we say, okay, we gotta chop out one of these routines every day, and they instantly want to cut down on the calories they're eating because they're assuming that they're going to gain weight. And I'm like, okay, but your metabolism is smarter than you are. I cannot, our bodies are so incredibly wired for survival that with you working out extra and not eating enough, your body just lowers that resting metabolic rate. And we think we're going to outsmart it by cutting those calories again. Nope. No. Our body is going to get the last word on that again. You're just going to eat less and be more miserable while working out.
Our bodies become really efficient. And I know that that sounds cool. We don't want to be efficient in this place, right? Like we want to be a lot less efficient, meaning that we just start to, like, you know, the more cardio you do, the more you have to do to burn the same amount of calories. Like you do not want an efficient metabolism at that point. You want a very inefficient metabolism. So
and it really, a lot of this program is a huge leap of faith. And, you know, going into it and even hearing the number of calories that I should be eating. I mean, I work with eating disorders for a living. I've managed my own eating disorder. Like I'm on the other side, darn it. And when I was told I needed to eat more calories, I mean, initially I was like, yay. And then another part of me was like, no, I can't do that. I'm already eating this, and I don't feel good here. Why would I want to do more? And now I'm eating more than I was even when I began, and they increased my calories because my muscle mass has increased so much. And I'm loving it. Like I literally, like my body just, I'm loving it. I have so much more energy at the gym. And now you couldn't pry those rest days out of my fingers. Like, you know, it's like, I gotta have a rest day. I can't go tomorrow. I've already had a couple good days. I'm gonna chill tomorrow. I'm gonna take a walk with the dogs. That'll be the amount of exercise I get for the day. But there's a lot to be said for how our world and this diet culture that we live in, especially in America, really lies to us to promote sales. And so when we begin reversing some of these things and actually working on healthy boundaries and healthy limits and adequate self-care, and adequate self-care isn't just exercise, it's also rest.
yes.
Adequate self-care isn't just chicken and rice, it's also desserts and treats and like all the things. And what's so hard to get our brains wrapped around is this notion that everything that we've been told is essentially a lie. And
1000%.
we want to say it's real because they have proof that they did it. They have proof of other people doing it. Look, you can lose weight if you stop eating all your carbohydrates, or you go on the carnivore diet, or you work out 90 times in 90 days. And all of it is just putting our bodies into a place where it becomes more efficient, where it's burning less efficiently, but also it's putting us back on that hamster wheel over and over and over again.
And this is why adding muscle to your frame is so important, ladies, because the more muscle you have to your frame, I really want to dive into a concept that you were just talking about, Anne. And it's this idea that, again, we feel like we have to be in the gym 6 days a week and how important rest and recovery is. But and I don't mean this to say like, oh, I want you to try and do as little as you possibly can, but I'm in a phase of my journey, and I'm going to tie this and bring it all full circle, that I'm literally, with everything that I have on my plate, it's just a completely different space for me. And it's something I've never experienced. And I'm honestly working through some of the feelings that come up with this as well. But I'm truly in a place where I'm doing as little as I possibly can to maintain my physique. And I've never been in this space because like, it's always just been my number one and my only priority. I didn't care what was going on. Like, buildings could be burning down and I'm in the gym like that. That's the space I was in for a really, I shouldn't say always, but that's the space I was in for a really long time. And now, nobody ever preps you for entrepreneurship and all the things that go into that. And I'm just in a place now where, like I said, I have things that take a bigger priority in my life right now. And so I'm in a space where I'm training 3 days a week. I am doing as little as I said I can right now to maintain my physique, but there's so much power to when you add muscle to your frame. It takes so much less than what you ever think it does to sustain and maintain, right? And that is liberating when life lives. And let's be honest, life always be lifing and things pop up. And now I'm in a place where I can train 3 days a week and sustain and maintain my physique just fine. I'm in a place right now where I'm training 3 days a week. I'm eating 23 to 2,400 calories a day. I'm weight stable. I'm happy. My body's happy. And if you would have told me 5 years ago that I would be able to do this, not working out 6 to 7 days a week and, weighing every tiny little thing that went in my mouth and not eating, 1,200 calories a day to get shredded, I would have laughed in your face. But this comes from, adding muscle to my physique. This comes from, obviously the foundation that I've been able to build. And so I was actually having a conversation at the gym, just like, I don't know, a month or two ago, and somebody came up to me and she's like, oh my gosh, she's like, can I ask what is your, she's like, and she was telling me, she's like, I work out 6 days a week. She's like, she trains 6 days a week, strength training. She runs 5 days a week. She's right now, currently she's doing keto. She's doing 1,400 calories. And she's just in a place where she's like, I'm just desperate to get this weight off. And we were talking and she was just mind blown. She's like, can I ask how many days a week you train? And I'm like, honestly, 3 right now. And she couldn't even wrap her head around that, but that comes with the foundation that I've been able to build, right? And that's honestly what every single one of you should be shooting for, because there will be a place where, and I know it's hard for newbies that get I always say you get bit by the bug, right? And you just love being in the gym and it just makes you feel so good. And there is a place, I think, where obsession can be healthy for short periods of time. And I think you kind of cycle through phases of it. And I'm so grateful for that phase that I did have, because that taught me a lot and I was able to add a lot of muscle to my frame. But when it comes full circle and you realize, like, because of this foundation that I was able to build, I'm in a place now where I'm really reaping the rewards of that. And it takes a lot less than what we think to be able to sustain and maintain. And of course, if I ever got to a place where I wanted to add more muscle, then I would have to amp my training back up. But I'm in a place right now where that's just not my biggest priority. And there's just a lot of power to that, I think. So yeah, I see you shaking your head. Do you have anything to say to that?
I think the whole process is that it's, again, working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely counter to everything that we've ever been taught. And I think that's why it's so hard mentally to get our heads around not working as hard as humanly possible to get results, right? And being patient. I cannot undersell patience. Diets are really great because we don't have to actually exercise any positive emotional coping skills. We do one thing one day, the scale goes down the next day.
Yep.
Right? Seems like a really easy transaction. Learning how to fuel your body to a point that your metabolism is restored, that's an emotional process. That was an emotional process for me, but that's an emotional process for every single person that I work with, regardless of how disordered they are. And getting your body to a place where metabolism is actually functioning efficiently so you can appropriately cut and so you can begin to manage things, but also so you develop a rhythm around what food needs to look like. Like, had you said to me 5 or 10 years ago, you need to increase protein, I would have been like, ew, gross, right? But this is where I say this all the time to people, we crave what we consume. So a lot of this is teaching your body what it needs. Because somewhere along the line, we either unlearned it or we weren't given it. And so learning how to actually eat the right things then puts us in a place where we begin desiring the right things.
Yep.
But it doesn't happen naturally. And we think for some reason, we think that if it's right, we should love it, all of it, right? Almost like, well, if if vegetables were so great for me, then they would taste like Twinkies. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not the case. If this were actually working, I'd see results in a month. Also, not the case, and that's how you got here.
Yep.
That's how you
100%.
got to a place where you're chasing your tail.
Yep. And there's so much power to all of this wrapping into. And I love when we have all three of us together because we each serve a purpose. And, I'm over here talking about training and the intensity of your training and training with intent and a strategy. And then you have Bouquet here when all of those things are in check, the hormone side of it, how much more optimized your hormones are when that piece of it's together. Right. And so, like you said, we naturally start to become insulin resistant and we get to a place where we can lower cortisol. And when stressors are lower and we're sleeping better and our digestion's better and all of those things, it's so interconnected. And then when we start to feel the effects of that, then the mindset piece is usually the last piece that comes into play after, because sometimes the belief comes after the evidence. It's really hard to believe that you can eat less and move more and see results, right? And it's one of those things, like even Anne's like, I've had my own journey. And even now I'm like, I get to eat this much. And I'm working out 3 to 4 days a week in the gym at 40 minutes a day. And I was riding my bike for 100 miles at a time. And I'm, seeing better results physically than I was. It's really hard to sometimes believe that. And it's one of those, you don't necessarily believe it until you see it. And the belief is going to come after the evidence, but you're only going to reap the rewards and the evidence if you put the action into it. So,
Yep.
Yeah,
That's true.
it is all so interconnected.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it's just, and that's why I love having all three of us together, just because there's so much power to all of these things. You guys have anything to wrap up here?
No, I think it's great. I mean, progressive overload, pushing yourself to failure, having your mindset on point, your food on point, your protein, and then, having someone to guide you because it's hard. You can fall off track easy if you don't have someone holding you accountable. So it's nice to have a coach or someone guiding you for sure.
Well, and I think the space of holding accountable is huge, but also the space of kind of like what Anne was leading into. This journey is emotional. And when it's your own journey, it is really hard to add food. Like, I don't know if Anne, if you weren't working with a coach, do you think you honestly would have ever added food and been able to do that and stick to it on your own?
Not as much food as I was adding as consistently. And I think all the misinformation and the disinformation, I'm all about people trying what it is that works for you. And at a certain point, you routinely lying to yourself about what it is, what foods that you like and what foods you can live without. Like at a certain point, we just have to face reality. There are certain foods that you don't actually want to live without. And quit trying to convince yourself of that, and yeah, going into the gym, it's super intimidating. I remember the first time I did a deadlift and I was like, I can't do that. And it's absolutely a mind thing. It was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to look stupid. I'm probably going to use the wrong form, but I'm going to do it anyway. And sure enough, fortunately, there were some very kind people at the gym that informed me what I was doing incorrectly. And I was like, oh, thanks. Just figure it out.
Yeah. And it does. Form comes with, it takes reps, for sure, but form comes with reps. And obviously, having a coach is a huge piece of that too, but it's really emotional when it's your own journey. It's hard to add food when we need to add food. It's hard to take food away when we need to take food away in dieting phases. It's hard to switch up our training programs when we become complacent with things and we're comfortable, right? Because it's all that we know. So all these things become really hard when it's your own journey to make those decisions on your own. So
I do want to mention something that there's an investment piece to a lot of what we do in life. And I am a very firm believer, and I have gotten here through trial and error myself. But I'm a very firm believer in where you put your money is an investment in yourself. So I pay out of pocket for functional medicine because I didn't like what my doctors were telling me. I paid out of pocket for my own therapy because I didn't like what my insurance company was providing for me. I pay out of pocket for coaching. And what I have identified, and yes, that is a luxury to be able to do that. I just want to notice that isn't always reality. And I am not trying to judge people if you can't be there. And what I have discovered is that over the long term, I've spent significantly less money investing short term in people who knew what it was that I needed and really knew a solid program than I did in chasing copays and insurance reimbursements and deductibles and everybody's advice everywhere. And there's so much time that I lost in waiting for what I thought were the right people to tell me the right things. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I went to the doctor and said, my hormones feel like they're out of whack. Why am I gaining weight? And they just said, yeah, you're older. You're still at appropriate BMI. This is just kind of what happens.
Yep.
We can give you some birth control. And I was unwilling to settle for that as an answer because I hated birth control. And fortunately, I didn't stop there. Getting testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, love it all. Feel like I'm in my 20s. Like I have so much more energy. It is mind numbing. Is it costly? Yes. And we really honestly have to treat it like an investment in ourselves.
Yeah.
And I would pay it over and over again.
100%.
Keeps you out of the, chronic condition offices. Here's your high blood pressure medicine. Here's your cholesterol medicine. Here's your metformin for your insulin resistance, or keeps you out of all that. You end up spending less money, actually.
1,000%. People tell me often, they're like, I can't afford that. And my response is usually, you can't afford not to. I mean, if you think about it in that sense, right? When we're talking the long-term savings and the cheap fix, the quick fix always ends up being the most time consuming and the most expensive fix.
Yep.
Because what happens is like, it's cheap in the moment until you lose the 20 pounds to gain 30 back. And then you're like throwing hundreds and hundreds of dollars at a time that you're basically just flushing down the toilet.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, people who pay attention. That's just what it is. And you truly do get what you pay for. You do, when we're talking a very specific skill set, and, really encouraging people who are listening to this, looking to invest, do your research. Make sure that you are, when you are looking into somebody, do they have the social proof? Do they have the transformations? Do they have the testimonials? And this goes on if you're looking for somebody on a hormonal side of it. This is something I preach often, working with somebody who's treating symptoms. They're not treating lab, the reviews, the mental health side of it. Another huge, all of it, it's the same concept in all fields. It really, really is. And this is what I love about having Anne and Bouquet on my team as well, is you do have those resources available to you. And, being able to, Bouquet may not be able to work with everybody because of licensing.
Tennessee,
same thing with Anne.
I'll have my license in Tennessee here soon. Yay.
Same thing with Anne, but they can give you and they can educate you on how, what to look for in a provider, what the questions that you should be asking, and the things that you should be on the lookout for. And there's a lot of power to that. So I'm so very grateful for the both of you, because I know what you bring to the team is just above and beyond what most coaches offer, but just the level of area and expertise that you guys have like I said, it's above and beyond, and it's priceless. It's quite literally priceless. So
honored to be here. It's awesome.
Yeah, same.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap up. I know Anne actually has her call for the team here in a little bit. So she's back to back. She's like, I got it to my next one. So, but okay, guys. Well, we will see you guys in the next episode. Ciao.